Okay. I'd like to call to order the Township Council meeting for March 7th, 2023. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to add to the record that the council met in executive session at 6:30 this evening regarding litigation. First item on the agenda is recognition and announcements. The Garnet Valley varsity cheerleading team, who are out in the hallway, are state champions. Larry, I want to hand this over to you if you would have the pleasure of introducing them.
Recognizing the Garnet Valley High School 2022-2023 varsity cheer team, whereas the Township of Concord, Delaware County, Pennsylvania is proud to recognize the achievements of young people in our community, and whereas the endless hours of practice and dedication have allowed the 2022-2023 Garnet Valley High School varsity cheer team to achieve high honors. Whereas the varsity cheer team of 2023 Central League champions, District 1 champions, and PIAA Small Varsity 3A state champions. Whereas those victories are quite an accomplishment thanks to the support from their parents, community, and coaches. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Council of Concord Township does hereby acknowledge and applaud the outstanding accomplishments of the 2022-2023 Garnet Valley Varsity High School cheer team. For that, we will pass and approve this on the 7th day of March 2023. If I could have Coach Lisa Garman come on up. She will call the players up and we'll come up for a photo. Congratulations,
Okay,
guys.
while we're waiting for Lisa to come up, that's in the form of a motion, Larry? And is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, and we'll hand it over to the coach.
Thank you for having us. We're going to start with the seniors. Abby Sheeran, Alyssa Jernigan, Emily Zoldner, Sydney Trigg, Peyton Crispin. Juniors, Haley Schaefer, Isabella Zarro, Grace Vaughn, Lana Del Judas, Mara Conte, Mel Lawler, Riley Parsons. Sophomores, Hannah Kelmer, Isabella Fiore, Jenna Birchtold, and our one and only freshman, Natalia Pomerico.
Should we stay standing here and then just group?
I think that might be better.
I think it's better too.
Okay, we'd like to get a picture. I don't know how, you guys might have to, we'll stay up here.
Be in the middle.
Why don't you go down with them with this, you and Benita. Go ahead, Benita. Well, no, we'll be up here. We're gonna send Benita down to, Benita and Larry with the resolution.
John, come across the whole judge.
Amanda's reliving her youth. Many years ago. Oh. Okay, congratulations, ladies. Good job. Thanks, Larry. All right. Okay, I'll just keep going Upcoming meeting and events on March 2nd, we have the Park and Rec Board meeting. March 8th, Historical Commission. March 15th, Zoning Hearing Board. March 20th, Planning Commission. March 25th, the CRC Annual Streams Cleanup from 9 a.m. at local site at the Grits Mill. March 28th, Council Agenda Meeting if needed. April 1st, our Recycle Day over at the Township Garage from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And April 1st, also the Easter Egg Hunt, 11 a.m. at the Bush Hill Farm property. Reports, public safety. Vanita, I think you have a couple reports for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all know, it is Women's History Month this month. And so as a
Our company, some current events.
Is that Fred Fields in that picture?
Actually, the one down in the lower left is Fred Field, so back in the 1950s. So he's standing on the truck. But yeah, that's a couple pictures of the old firehouses. We started in 1928. We've been around that long. Where the firehouse currently sits at the intersection of Baltimore Pike and Concord Road is. I'll back up. That's okay. So we completed our second addition and renovation to what the station currently looks like, and that was completed in 1999, and that's the station that you see today when you drive by. That for me. This is what the station currently looks like. This is our current fleet of apparatus. We got one ALS unit. That means a paramedic is on board. That handles all the primary calls in our district. We have two BLS trucks, which provide basic life support system, a backup ambulance that we purchased this past year, a rescue truck which handles motor vehicle accidents, and then the two engines and the tower ladder respond to building fires. We have a brush truck for the field fires, and the tank truck, part of our 42 square mile district, which covers parts of 4 townships. Some of that doesn't have hydrants, so we have to bring the water with us. So we still have a tank truck. That would be the last one that's left in Delaware County. To give you an idea with the call volume that we're dealing with, you can see it, we'll start lower in the red. 2014, we had 922 fire calls that year, and it's maintained pretty similar numbers all the way up through 2022, somewhere between 900 and 989. You can see the big increase happened on the graph that's on the top. That's EMS, and we had 2,400 emergencies in 2014, and in 2021, we had increased to almost 3,800. Last year's numbers, these are the totals. It was 915 fire incidents. EMS incidents took another jump by 600 calls up to 4,455. For the total incidents for the year, we're 5,370. So that's a pretty significant call volume. Like I said, we cover 4 townships and 42 square miles. Pretty good population. So here's a comparison of a 3-year average that we decided to compare. We're trying to get an idea, and we try to follow trends. A couple of us have really become stat junkies over the years, so we really follow the stats. It paints a good picture for us. So the average from 2013 to 15, that's the breakdown for each of the townships that we cover. That's just primary response area. We also provide mutual aid to the surrounding area and the surrounding fire company. So you can see that in those years from 13 to 15, Concord Township was 59% of our call volume. And then from 20 to 22, you can see that kind of shifted a little bit, and you're now 62% of our call volume. One of the major issues that we're facing, and one of the issues that we've dealt with over the years, the biggest change in the fire service, especially in this area, the past 40 years, has been the numbers of volunteers participating. It's a national problem. It's not specific to Concord Township. It's not specific to the state of Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania, because of its high numbers of volunteers in the fire service, in 1976, you can see there was over 300,000 volunteer firefighters in the state. By 2012, that number had dropped to just over 50,000. And the AP reported in December 21 that number had dropped to around 30,000. Concorville staffing levels kind of mirror what the reports had said, both on a national, state, and local level. So you can see the blue line on this graph. It's a little hard to read because of the small font, but we wanted to get the information in there. In 2003, we had 35 active volunteers. We saw a little bit of a spike in 03 and 04 in that area following 9/11 in 2001. There was a big uptick in both patriotism and volunteerism. The next couple of years saw that number continue to decline. And as of last year, we had 15 active volunteers. Volunteer to be considered an active member, you have to make 10% of the fire incidents for the year. So If we're averaging over 900 per year, that means that volunteer had made at least 90 of the incidents when they were dispatched. Go back on 1 second, I'm sorry. So the red line is we hired career staff in 2002. So one of the jokes I used to tell is when everyone was at their real jobs, but when we first hired firefighters, there was 2 of them during the day. They worked Monday through Friday, and they basically covered when everyone was at their, when it was still mostly volunteer, they were all at their jobs. We had to increase that in 2007, and you can see the gradual increase that's happened over the years, and most of that follows the call volume, and it also covers some shifts, and that'll lead to. I'm not going to read every bullet point. These were the highlights and the big changes that we made to the staffing over the years. The big one, of course, is in 2002 when we started. Some big changes happened in between 2012 and 2014 when we expanded our coverage to the nights and the weekends because it was required because of the number of calls. Like I said, those declining numbers on the volunteer side. And then in 2018, we added some EMT coverage. So what was happening, because some of the guys are cross-trained with fire and EMS, if an EMS call came in, we were leaving the fire coverage light. That's kind of a gamble you don't want to take, so we had to basically think of the worst-case scenario and make sure that we had everything staffed. In 2022, we added 4 more full-time firefighters. We now have 4 platoons that rotate. There's 4 people on during the day. There's 3 at night. Like I said, all those people are cross-trained. And we also have 2 EMTs on during the day from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And if you follow our stats, that's where you see the highest call volume for EMS calls. With that, of course, with hiring more people, we have to spend more money on payroll. So the only item that I really deal with in the budget on a consistent basis, because I manage the career staff, is the budget or the payroll budget. So in 2014, you can see our payroll budget was $400,000, and by 2022, because of the increase that had in both hours and the number of people, that's increased to 1. Some proactive steps that we took at the fire company were trying to kind of combat those numbers or deal with that. Incentive program for the volunteers. So that was intended to encourage the duty crews at the station, so as opposed to a home response. One of the problems that we had in this area is where you used to be able to get to the station in a timely manner due to the increase in traffic, traffic lights, population over the past 20 years, that home response becomes very difficult, and it's very hard to get there in a timely manner, especially depending on time of day. I'm sure anybody that's a resident of the township can understand that. So the home response is still vital. Guys still do respond from home at all hours of the day, and that's still a vital part of what we do. They get the additional apparatus out, but that first piece gets out the door relatively quickly. But if we relied strictly on the home response, that would, of course, cause a delay in the response. We do have a recruitment and retention committee. If you've been to any of the township events, you've probably seen them out at a table handing out pamphlets and also applications, trying to encourage people to volunteer their time at the fire company. We actively recruit all the time. We saw that was really hampered by the COVID pandemic. We had a hard time with that. We're doing a little bit better now, trying to get back out and get involved in those activities. We also updated the company's social media presence. Follow us on our website is a really good website. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We see a lot of activity on there once we were starting to put some more information out there. The positive and the proactive steps with the career staff is the guys that we have hired and girls is highly qualified and highly trained. We have several chief officers from area departments that work with us part-time. Several of our employees are state-level instructors on staff. That helps with firefighters obtaining their certifications and also maintaining them for some Con Ed that's required with some of that. And then some of them work for larger municipal departments. Philadelphia, we got a couple guys from, or a guy from DC and a couple other that help us out. That helps with recruitment and retention on the volunteer side as well as a career, because once you get into this line of work or line of volunteering, you can get hurt. There's a real high potential to get injured if you do things the wrong way. So people have a tendency to want to ride with people that have a better handle on what's going on in an experience level. How many people are required on the fire ground? Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail. This is dictated by the NFPA, which is the National Fire and Protective Association. The standards are 1710 and 1720 that address staffing, and they're established for career and volunteer department responses. The problem that we have is neither one really applies to us fully because we're a combination department, and that means we use both volunteer and career staffing. So, but the general idea of both of them is that 12 to 15 firefighters need to end up at the scene in a certain time frame. That time frame is based on the population of the area you cover, density, the number of housing units. And the good part of that is over the past 8 years, since we have people on station and not strictly from home response, is our average response time from dispatch to arrival has improved from just under 15 minutes to now we're under 8 minutes. And that's the average, both times improved. That's just for Concord Township. So that includes the times that, the average time, of course, to go to the further parts of the township that we. Some projects that we got going on, we just kind of wanted to highlight some of them because they're pretty big. This is a really big one for us. This is part of our pre-plan project, and this is just an example. Any buildings that have either a high occupancy or a high hazard, we need information on those buildings prior to the incident happening. We call those pre-plan. So this is an overview of the Maris Grove campus with the building numbers on there. This information is available to the fire crew on the engine through basically like a CAD system. We get dispatch information on our iPads, and this information is available to the firefighter. So I don't need help finding out where Maris Grove is. Very familiar with where the location is, but building 102, I kind of need to know where that is. And the red marks that you see are the fire department connections, and the circles are the hydrants. So the fire crew is able to kind of pre-plan where they're going to park and where they're going to stage the apparatus. This gives you an idea of the information we have on buildings specifically. This is their clubhouse. And you can see that the basic information we have, the ones we do, is on every building that we do these pre-plans on. And it's laid out the same way. So that at 2 o'clock in the morning, when the mind ain't working as great as it is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're able to find the basic information, contact information. I'm also able to look at the structure, see what the roof structure is. This one, whether it's a truss roof, does it have elevators, and also the layout of the building. It also describes in the lower left corner there the fire protection system. Is it sprinklered? Do we have fire and smoke detectors? And where is the location of the alarm panel? So all this helps us with just a better response. This is an overview of their ground floor. So it's really easy to find your way around, especially these commercial buildings. Not to brag on the township guys, but they do a pretty good job of policing that and making sure the signage, but all the signage that they put up for our fire department connections and things, they're real cooperative effort there. It makes it easy. The problem is once you fill the hallway with smoke, it's a little harder to find. So if someone in command or before we go in, we're able to determine where the mechanical room is or where the hazards are, and you can see some of the hazards listed there. I couldn't put it in the pre-plan, but if I were to click on that on my iPad on the natural gas connection, the ERG, the Emergency Response Guide for Hazardous Material, comes up and it tells me how to handle that. If you're a local resident and you live in a single-family dwelling, this is Concord Hunt, and you can see right under the name Concord Hunt, it says right on Concord Road to Smithbridge to Kirk. That gives the firefighter a general idea of the direction he's heading from our firehouse. And then you can see that coming off of Smithbridge Road, they can find your address, its exact location, and also where the nearest hydrant is, which is the red mark. That's all right. Over on the right, you can see on Featherbed Lane, if you have a long lane and you're back in the trees, normally we would have a hard time locating that, even from a satellite view. But over on the far right there underneath the 140, you can see that 665 might be a little hard to see from the road at Featherbed at 2 o'clock in the morning. But we have a general idea what we're looking for, and we know that it's a flag lot behind 667. So that gives you how that. Some other scheduled projects we have, we do fire prevention pretty much all year long. It used to be October was a real busy month from us. That's still a busy month, but now it goes all year long. We're constantly in the schools, all of the schools. We also go to a bunch of the daycares, and a lot of the community groups ask us to participate in that. We have 2 new ambulances scheduled for delivery. One's in 2023. 2025, we've already scheduled delivery. I believe that was take advantage of some pricing, if I'm correct, rightly. And then we also have some training scheduled for both the officer and command level and the firefighters. That's continuous through 2023. That's a brief highlight. This is my contact information. We got a really good website at concordville.org if you ever want to check it out. Any big incidents, we put a full news story up there so that the community is aware of what's going on. The Facebook page, the Instagram, and the Twitter accounts are all available. You can by a basic search. I should have put them up there as well. That's actually my email address and the station phone number. We're pretty proud of what we do. We do a biased opinion aside, a really good job. If anybody ever wants to stop by the station or see what's going on, feel free to call that number. You can arrange a visit. COVID kind of put a hampering on that too. We used to welcome the visitors, leave the doors open all the time, but we're kind of back to, we like showing people around and kind of showing the. That's all I have for you as far as the operational overview. I think Lee has a couple comments he'd like to make.
A quick question, an ambulance, What does that cost all in? And and what's the life cycle on one of them?
2.5 years ago, an ambulance cost $220,000. This year, I just ordered an ambulance with a 2-year delivery time, $328,000.
And how long do they,
They last, well, we're running the, hope it's not a plug, but running the Ford F-50, 450s, standard chassis. The medic unit puts on 117 miles a day. Can't rotate because of licensure with the state of Pennsylvania and Delaware County. So a couple of our ambulances with the lesser mileage are 5 years old. The medic unit is only 2.5 years old. We ordered an ambulance. Luckily, we have a connection with our vendor, and we were supposed to get an ambulance in 2025. He found a chassis for us, so therefore we have one coming in at the beginning of 2024. Then I took the chassis that we had reserved for 2025 and kept that on order, so that's how we are. Other places are begging and borrowing us, stealing together. So fire trucks, by the time we order a new one, which nothing's on the books, will probably be $1 million for a pump. 2027, they say the engines themselves will probably go up $75,000 to $100,000 due to emission. That makes life interesting.
From a volunteer perspective, what do you have any programs with the high school, and do you find that you get any young volunteers at the high school level or not?
We we are a little bit remiss in reaching out to the high school, but one of the problems we have is the qualifications. Fire 1, which is required to, and you have to be 18 to achieve Fire 1, is what, 180 hours now? Almost for somebody to be trained to do Fire 1. Then you add vehicle rescue technician on top of that and other things like that. So the training is one of the things that takes us out of the reach of a lot of people. And we require that training, as does the state of Pennsylvania and things like that, for liability reasons and everything. So that's one of the many things is hurt the volunteer system. We could talk, Bill, tomorrow morning, but I'm sure you don't want to about that. But the training is one of the things. The ability to get to the firehouse is one of the things. The ongoing training. I have to go CPR, AED every 2 years. I have to take hazmat awareness, which is 8 hours, a refresher every year. I have to do bloodborne pathogens, which is 4 hours every year. So that goes on and on and on, and some of that is so repetitious. I know it now, but I still have to follow the procedure.
So then, given that and what you were mentioning about obviously the hour requirements, but then also age requirements, are there ways for young people who might be interested in pursuing this either at a volunteer or career level to be involved or be connected with a fire station?
There are ways, and they can definitely run with this. They're just limited as to what they can do. They can't enter a burning building, but they sure can help us shovel hose around outside and do this, that, and the other things. And then we do training with them that they can throw ladders up against a building and help out in other ways. And one of the things we're trying to tell them now is that with the training that we can provide, they can do a career of this. The guys that are full-time for us work 24 hours on and then 72 off, and then 24 hours on. What I could do with 72 hours of my time and still have a full-time position, if that had been available when I was younger, I would have done it. But you had to go to the big municipalities to do that. Now it's here. Bethel's looking at it. Edgemont's looking at hiring. Oxford's just hired too. Claymont's looking. Media's hired people. Everybody's hiring. That's one of the problems we're having is everybody's pulling from the same pot of people. That makes the wages go up. There's a demand. So that's another one of our things that hurts us a little bit economically.
So for the high school, just to help out the high school students that may be interested in volunteering, what's the minimum age requirement for them?
We do 16 years old. Some fire companies have a junior program for 14 years, but that they're very limited as to what they can do, and I can imagine if you're limited between 14 and 16, your interest probably will not be there. 16, we can start using them for some interesting stuff, but they, then they have to wait till there's, I think, a little bit of legislation where they can do some of Fire 1 at 17 now, but even so, to enter a burning building, it's going to be 18 or whatever.
And the ambulances that we have ordered,
Just to piggyback on one of that,
Okay.
there is a program available through Delaware County at the technical high school that's available. They have a fire program there. Some of those kids that participate in that program, it's just like a VOTEC program or a vocational program where you would go for mechanic and HVAC technician or anything like that. Some of them come out of there with their emergency medical technician certification. They basically come out ready to test for their Fire 1. So even though they can't go into a burning building until they're 18 years old, they can take care of all those prerequisites. The problem is you have to sign up specifically for that program. So in addition to, I guess, part of that program is your thing. How that works in conjunction with Garnet Valley, as far as part of that problem is, it goes to the Delaware County Training Center, which is on Calkin Hook Road down near the Philadelphia Airport. That to happen for Garnet Valley School, some logistical things there I can affect that. So the 16-year-olds are limited. They also have to sign in and sign out. The child labor laws apply to that. They have to get working papers signed if they're going to participate. Some of that if they're younger. So a lot of those problems that hamper the whole 16-year-old. So that we would have a hard time keeping in place on a steady.
and for the ambulance that's coming in one in 23 and 25, are they specific to the basic life support, or they can be also used for advanced life support?
So the only equipment that makes it an advanced life support unit is the EKG or the monitor, the cardiac monitor, the narcotics and the drugs that they carry, and mostly the equipment. So the unit itself, it does not make it an ALS unit. So if it wasn't for the licensure, we probably would be able to rotate, but that has to be specifically licensed as an ALS unit.
Thank you.
With regards to some of the roads, I mean, you mentioned the map up there, and not to put you on the spot, and we can have more follow-up, but are there any concerns that you have about particular roads or intersections or that are problematic for you and your equipment to perhaps navigate or concerns that you have?
No, they're not problematic. We usually cover that during our driver training. They have to go through some pretty extensive driver training. Part of that driver training includes area familiarity. First of all, they have to know where they're going before they can even drive it. But they know things and they basically learn how to deal with them. Like a good example is from, like if we were going to assist Bethel Township going up Concord to 5 Points intersection up at where Folk Road comes in. That's an odd intersection that they have to take a different angle when you're driving a 42 aerial. So what they would do normally is they would avoid that route. But the other thing we cover is what's busy and when. So like a good example I use is, like Brewster's Ice Cream where Parker Place is. I always use that as an example. If we're heading there for an emergency, which route would you take from our station? So you might say, I'll go to Concord Road and down Smithbridge at 3:30 in the afternoon. Not a great idea, right? So at 5:30 p.m., going 202 or Route 1 to 202, not a great idea. So what they become familiar with is the traffic patterns when the traffic's heavy. One of the things we do to avoid that, we get our fuel at the school district. They're kind enough to let us kind of piggyback onto that program, take advantage of the cost. So we try and fuel the trucks at night. One, when the buses aren't there, and when the road's less heavy. That way, if we have an emergency, there are examples of that answer.
As part of our land development approval, and this is mostly for the commercial project, Nate, we use the turning templates for not only fire trucks, but also trash trucks. Do we have the most current templates that they're using to match up with their trucks, Nate?
Correct, yeah. So we have Fred Field and Bob Vasic historically reviewed every single land development project that's come through the township. And then one of the things they do is as they get new vehicles, we've got that turning radius for the largest vehicle that we give to applicants to put into their system to make sure they can get through the system.
And then just to piggyback on that, not only do they do that, and they're usually, a lot of times they would call us if they were concerned about something that might not show up on a plan, like a tree or a sign that they didn't, include and then they basically would let them know whether that would stay or not.
Yeah, this is, for all the, I work with a lot of municipalities. I've probably learned more from Fred Field in my time here than anybody else in that regard. Just, yeah, it's just really, really good.
He's the priceless. That's a good word for it. Lastly, naturally, your expenses go up. We are one of the contributing townships to your bottom line through the millage on our tax bill. Are you anticipating any expenses for next year? Usually when you guys show up, and I appreciate the presentation, I've been here many years and seen many of them. I don't think as one of the council members, former supervisors, whatever we were, you guys have never asked for a dime unless you've needed it to protect the interest of the people of Concord Township. So I just want to throw that out there.
As requested, I'll throw under the bus by township manager. I was going to bring this up in my closing, but first of all, I want to thank
Been here too long. I know.
inviting us here tonight, and thank you for the public for letting us serve. As you've seen some of the statistics change here tonight and everything like that, we didn't get into the economics part except for the cost of salaries. And as you've seen a little bit when I mentioned the ambulances and prices like that and that. Right now, we are working on a 5-year budget similar to what we've worked on in the past. We will be presenting that to the township management. I don't know if that's a proper term, but of all 4 townships for them to review, and then we'll see where they go from that and how it's presented out to the public. That will be out probably the beginning of May. I've been to Thornbury Township on other business and just informally mentioned it to them. It's also been informally mentioned to Birmingham and Chadds Ford, so they're all in the same level at this point. Facts and figures, pretty comprehensive facts and figures, similar to your township, coming out early May, and we'll forward them to Amanda and the other township managers, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, we definitely will be asking for money. We got hurt with COVID and things like that, and the sudden increase in expenses for everything, just like everybody else has.
Mhm.
So, and present that, and then go from there.
3 or 4 years, I think, since we had to increase the millage for fire protection. So
Yeah,
you guys
I think
are
so.
very good stewards with the money.
We
You
try
don't
to
come
be.
asking unless you need it.
As a municipal manager in Delaware County, I can tell you that we have one of the most professional fire companies out there, and that's not to make it sound like others aren't professional, but we are very lucky with the folks we have in place over here.
And it's one more thing is, you know, he didn't mention it, but John Poole just graduated with a master's in public safety, something or other. So that's the level of people that we have. Thank you.
We would have had the cheerleaders do a cheer for you, and we know that. But anyway.
Thank you for your service.
Congratulations.
Open space, trails, and recreation. Mr. Cross.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few highlights from Steve Jacobs, our Director of Director of Parks and Recreation, excuse me, his report. The Concord Skate Night drew over 40 attendees. That's exciting. The Black History Month event in partnership with the Concord Township Historical Society drew over 30 attendees. We did have to cancel our first bus trip, which was planned to go to the Philadelphia Flower Show this week due to a lack of response, unfortunately. And our Public Works Director meets regularly with our Parks and Rec Director to identify infrastructure needs within the park. A couple of events we have coming up. The Easter egg hunt, as you mentioned, on Saturday, April 1st at 11 a.m. over at Bush Hill Farm. And this is new this year in partnership with Yoga 6, which is a new yoga studio here in town. We have free Yoga Saturday, starting on Saturday, April 1st, running the first Saturday of each month at 10:30 a.m. in Smithbridge Park. In addition to that, we do have the stream cleanup happening in just a couple weeks on March 25th at the Newland Grist Mill. Encourage folks to sign up for that. Next month, Nate will have an update, a more extensive update on our Octorara Trail plans. And at next month's meeting, we will also have the final documents for the conservation easement for the 50 acres owned by the Wilcox family in the Ivy Mills area of town. And lastly, our Bush Hill Farm master plan process is underway. We just had a planning meeting yesterday. We anticipate that master plan process wrapping up by summer. And we concluded a survey which had about 450 respondents, which was very strong. Very happy to see that level of engagement by our community, and particularly we had probably about 50 folks interested in volunteering on our trails and in our parks. So good things ahead in Concord.
Is the Foreign Public Works. Dana, since Mr. Gillespie is away, could you handle that for us, please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. President. For the month of February, the staff performed 5 sewer lateral inspections for property resales. The sewer department also responded to 59 Pennsylvania one-call notifications that include marking public sewer lines in planned work areas. An informational meeting was held with the residents included in the Concord Road North Sewer Project service area. Construction work is planned to begin in the month of March once PennDOT issues approval of the detour plan. Residents will have full access with minimal delays, but the plan is to limit through traffic during working hours. The detour plan will be posted on the website and social media once it's approved. Additionally, they had about 12 daily and weekly procedures that they performed and 14 projects that they were working on. Public Works have been busy over at the Senior Center. They replaced the uneven sidewalk to the Senior Center building. This was a safety concern, so they were able to work together and combat that. Additionally, they were able to lay concrete for the stairs on the side, so their new side entrance is now much safer for use. Additionally, on this playground here in the campus building, we were able to haul 12 truckloads of certified playground mulch consisting of 50 yards plus of material, which raised the playground for safe playability. On Spring Valley Road, Public Works excavated grass within the road medians and replaced with river stone. The new look created safer maintenance while upgrading the appearance. Also, over at the Public Works garage, major repairs for the drainage of the parking lot and water relief on the sidewalk leading to the memorial. And additionally, the Memorial Garden site, staff dug the existing paved walkway and replaced it with a concrete sidewalk. Thank you.
Okay. Building and Code Enforcement, Colleen is not here this evening. Her report will be made part of the record. Planning Commission, Larry.
Yes, thank you. Letter dated February 28th, 2023. The Planning Commission agenda meeting was held February 13th, 2023, and the public meeting was canceled for February 21st. Projects Premier A2 Chads Ford PA LLC LD. Application 366 Wilmington Westchester Pike. Folio number 13000104600. Discussed the status of that plan, and a 90-day extension was requested, and it was issued through the Planning Commission. On other news, the Planning Commission reviewed, and the Planning Commission comments will be issued to Council for the zoning map and comprehensive plan, which I don't believe we've received yet. And then the schedule for the month, the agenda meeting will be held on March 13th, 2023, and the public meeting will be held on March 20th.
Thank you. Solicitor Tyler, you're sitting in for you. Do you have anything to report?
I am. Good evening, Mr. President, members of council. Just a brief one this evening. 3 items. First, regarding Concord Ventures. The 2019 land use appeal is still pending in the Court of Common Pleas of Delaware County before Judge Whalen. In relation to that issue, the 2021 mandamus action that Concord Ventures filed, they also filed a motion for a preemptory judgment. We opposed that motion. Judge Whalen denied that motion. Concord Ventures has since appealed it to the Commonwealth Court, and just at the end of February, I believe the 28th of February, Judge Whalen issued an opinion stating that appeal is improper and it's not an order that should have been appealed. On to the second item, it would be the zoning application of Milan Lodging. Council has asked the solicitor to intervene and step in that hearing. The hearing for March was continued until April. I believe the developer is trying to talk to the neighbors about the application. The third issue is the Pulte matter over on 202. All the developers' agreements are being completed by our office, and we should have an update for you about that at the next meeting.
Thank you. Township Engineer Nate.
Sure, so I'll piggyback on the Pulte comment. Pulte, the site is Spring Lake. That is the old pitch and putt golf course south of the Whole Foods. So as you mentioned, that project, everything is in order regarding permits. They are recording the plans and getting agreements in place. We are having our pre-construction meeting with their team tomorrow, and we anticipate construction starting as early as next week. The initial stages will be some remediation of the previous greens from the golf course, from some contamination before they go kind of full bore into the site. Again, they've got all their DEP permits in order, their PennDOT permit. We are working on the last few permits. There will be some blasting. A blasting notification went out. That permit's been issued by the DEP. Our fire marshals, these guys left, but the other fire marshals will be issuing that permit, I anticipate, over the next week or two. That project does contain 2 traffic signals. There'll be a traffic signal at either end of Isaac Bullock Lane on northbound and southbound 202. Always anticipated with the construction of Isaac Bullock, probably going back at least 10 or 15 years now. So they'll be completing those as part of their project. Second, I just did want to comment on open space. We did have a site meeting with our Park and Rec Director and Public Works last week, looking at the Beaver Valley Pocket Park on Beaver Valley Road at the recent acquisition the township made. Just having an initial meeting to brainstorm ideas. Next step will be meeting and reaching out to the immediate adjoining neighbors to have a discussion, and then we'll be opening up to a larger community to have a further discussion. That's all I have.
Okay. Township Manager, it's that time of year for the State of the Township address.
Everyone can't wait.
It always comes up just about the time of the Oscars.
Listen,
So,
I'm about to give a 5-minute Oscar
Amanda,
presentation.
Go ahead. Yeah, right. Just nobody come up and smack her. No.
Good Lord. All right, well, I guess we talked earlier when I told the fire company to brag. That's what I'm going to do here for about 5 minutes, if everyone will indulge me. State of the Township is a requirement of the Home Rule Charter, and I am the individual to give it. Where normally a mayor might do so, your township manager is going to deliver the good, important news, right? So let me just really quickly, I'm going to put this up on the screen so that folks at home can see it. View, screen, switching the screens. So I used to do when I first came here, which almost looked like a book report. Since COVID, nobody wants to read a book report. So we try to keep it to an infographic sheet that provides helpful information. On the back of this sheet, you actually have a QR code, so the folks that grabbed it in the audience, that takes you to our website to provide you all of the in-depth information, from budgets to my presentations, to our newsletters and things that dive in a little deeper. So I will go through the highlights and this year's State of the Township. I've done it sort of calling that roadmap of success. As the folks here know, leadership extremely important in this municipality. And what I point out, we have diverse council representation. It is Women's History Month. We have, and not to say that that's the only diversity up here, but we should be very proud of the folks sitting up here. I certainly am. We also have, and they've been here a long time. Dominic, how many years have you lived here?
How many years have I lived here?
Have you lived here?
Since 1990.
Okay. Vinita, how many years have you lived here?
Will be 18 years soon.
You know, great. So we have folks that have been here for a long time who are representing our residents. Additionally, we have professional management. I like to point that out. I will brag for a second about my staff and the things that we do in this building. We are small in numbers. We are 30 folks. And as you go down this list and you see a lot of the things being accomplished, we're doing the day-to-day. And I think that's extremely important to point out. As far as myself as a professional manager, I'm proud that the folks that hired me, I have my MPA from Villanova University. I am an adjunct professor at Villanova University. I am also a vice president of the State Association for Municipal Management. Those things matter when it comes to the things that we put in place here on the day-to-day and the code of ethics that I abide by as a municipal manager. We provide impeccable services that I think with what we have here, we have a very healthy financial picture. which includes our proactive 5-year capital planning that we have been doing since the Home Rule Charter. We are an accessible government. We are 4,000 social media followers. I'm looking over here at Lisa, who is a resident of our township, also works in the township, and she works really hard on our communications and trying to reach folks. We've had messages that reach upwards of, 15,000 people, but our regular followers are 4,000. We're proud of it. We have a YouTube channel. This meeting is being shown live to folks who are at home. Last year, we processed over 136 right-to-know law requests. Folks that aren't familiar with those, we get requests from residents, and we process information from this building. We are an open book, and we share everything that we legally can. Additionally, we do weekly email notifications. If you're not signed up, it's through our Code Red notification system, and Lisa actually is the one, and she puts out notifications every week for folks to know what's happening in the building. Fiscal responsibility, utmost important. This year, past year, and the past several years, there's been a 0% tax increase in 2023. I think what's even more interesting about that is when you look at our tax bill, for every dollar that a resident contributes, $11 come from commercial entities in this township, and we are 83% residentially zoned. So I think that's important for taxpayers to know. We are AA1 bond rated, which is great for a municipality of our size and our fund balances. We have clean audit opinions, no findings, extremely important, and we are meeting our budget expectations yearly. From a preservation standpoint, $5.2 million reserved for open space, trails, and recreation. And a few years ago, I reported a higher number, but that's because council's actually preserving land when they can. So we've saved over 125 acres since 2018. That's extremely important in our area in this county because there's not a lot of land available and for a price that we can afford. So I think that's extremely important. We just instituted a new comprehensive open space park and recreation plan, which is also extremely important. If we do have a changing municipality, we've put that towards a lot of trails and things like that you'll see in the park and recreation portion of this. We've also preserved over 10 historic buildings since 2018, whether deed restriction or other restrictions in purchase, and I think that's important to note out as well. Infrastructure, we have $6.5 million in 2023 in capital projects planned. We maintain 55 plus miles of roadway. We maintain 69 plus miles of sewer lines. We also run over 2,500 sewer accounts that our staff members handle the billing in-house for with two folks. In 2023 road paving, we have budgeted about $550,000 for stormwater projects. In 2023, we have $1 million planned in projects. Switching back over to the sustainability side, we had started, I know Vanita was a big proponent of this one. We've given out over 1,000 trees gifted to residents to plant in this township on Recycle Days, and it's been wildly successful. We have folks who come to Recycle Day to receive a tree. So we have one coming up. Come through the line, recycle your stuff. It feels good, and we'll give you a tree. That'll be great for you at your home. We also are working on, if you've seen the goats, another very popular thing that sort of fell on us a little bit there. And we're using them to help with our land management efforts when we can. Route 202, we've worked on the medians there to be landscaped and beautified. That is still a work in progress. That's a very busy area, but we're doing our best under council's leadership to beautify that corridor as it's very heavily traveled. This year, our newer Public Works Director started a Christmas tree recycling program, and we fed the goats a lot of the Christmas trees, so doesn't get more sustainable than that. And we also work on LED light replacement projects. In this building, we just have completed an LED light replacement project that'll save us $30,000 plus over the next 10 plus years. So very exciting stuff happening. Public safety. The team in 2022 processed 280 property safety inspections. James is sitting over here, very proud. He's now on the building code side, but big part of that program for us in making sure that buildings are safe for folks to be in. We had processed 875 building permits this past year. And remember, we're small in number, so these are big things happening here. Also, council is planning, they worked with the state police on a traffic signal camera safety project that should be coming to fruition here in 2023. PSP, on that side of the public safety hat, in 2022, they responded to over 5,000 calls in our municipality. And I will point out that they noted that our crime numbers have decreased year over year since 2020, which is another important. And those numbers are low, so to begin with, but they have decreased year over year. Our park and recreation side of the world, we have the pickleball courts, which if you live under a rock, I guess you don't know about the pickleball courts, but they are very busy all the time. We put in new bocce ball courts. We have a new pocket park that is planned, and that's done with grant money. We have that planned for over on Beaver Valley at the 40 Beaver Valley site in the future. We hired a new full-time park and recreation director, which was a component that came out of our open space comprehensive plan. Important things. We're not just planning, we're actually implementing and doing the things that we say we're going to do, which is extremely important. Additionally, we have, with our new Park and Rec director, we've got 10 new summer events coming. It's going to be really exciting. We have a cornhole competition coming. We have a new diversity day sort of modification coming. We've got bird walks. You just heard about yoga free in the park on Saturdays. It's only going to get better and better for residents here, so this can be the best place to live, work, and play. Additionally, from a technology standpoint, which is extremely important, you know, we've increased our cybersecurity. We're paying attention. We're trying to do the things that are necessary. As you've read in the paper, I know the county had a cyber issue. You know, we're trying to do and implement all these things. Our sewer plant, which is a huge technology, we've put $1 million in new pumps and upgrades to make sure that we're running efficiently and meeting environmental, sustainable, and technological needs. So that's important. And then I sort of end there with success. And we are the third lowest tax in Delaware County. The average taxpayer here is about $224 a year to the township. I know everyone thinks of their taxes in a whole number, but just to break that out for you from the local level, what comes in this building is an average resident bill of $224 a year. I assume that some of your Comcast and Verizon bills are higher per month. So I want to point that out as that is extremely important, and that is under council's leadership. I can't say it enough. We have over 320 plus acres of open space in this municipality. We've received over $2 million in grants for trails, over $4 million in grants between our other projects. We have top-notch amenities and services, and as far as I'm concerned, we are the best place to live, work, and play, and it's shown by us being one of the most sought-after zip codes in Delaware County. So with that, I'm good unless anyone has any questions. Hashtag Concord Proud.
Very good job. This is, how many years you've been doing this?
5.
No. That was as a result of the Home Rule Charter. And
Yes.
I liked the graphic. Good job. That's all I can
You're
say.
welcome.
So I'll leave it at that. You know me.
Thanks for keeping me and
you
hiring
know me.
me.
To compliment you,
It's a big compliment. I'm taking it. Thank you so much.
that normally doesn't happen. But anyway,
But to follow up on that, Amanda, you've really done an outstanding job leading our township in this way and organizing our staff that have been here for a long time as well in inspiring them to new endeavors as well as bringing in additional staff and like you said, professionalizing the operations of Concord Township. Folks see that not just as residents locally, but regionally and in the county as well as broadly. I appreciate all that you've done to elevate us.
Thank you so much. I love it here.
now if we get back to your manager's job, I live up off of Cheney Road, Patricia Lane, up close to the prison, and there's been a concern expressed to me from neighbors in that area regarding the prison and a proposal to install solar panels on Cheney Road, I guess between Schoolhouse and, drawing a blank, Nate, the one that goes Spring Lawn? Okay. And I just want to, and Amanda, you can help me with this. We were approached by the county via Zoom call, I think in January of 2022.
That is correct.
at which time they had hired a consultant to explore the opportunity or feasibility of installing solar panels in that area. At that meeting, it was expressed to them that the ground is zoned residential, just as the ground on the prison is zoned residential. And if they were to pursue this, it would require some zoning relief and also land development plans and things of that nature. We never heard anything back. In August of 2022, I think Amanda reached out to the liaison from the county on this to see if there were any updates. None were given. I think what is driving some of the concern is recently County Council, I think, approved to extend the agreement with the consultant that was hired to explore this option for a longer period of time. I just want to tell everybody we have not heard anything from the county or this consultant since the call back in January of 2022. If anything does develop, we will let you know in a timely fashion. Suffice it to say, there will have to be hearings required, either at the zoning hearing board and before us or both. But we have not heard anything. I applaud the people for keeping their eyes open on it, but I just felt it was time to come clean on that, not necessarily clear, that we have not heard anything, and if we do, we will let you know. Yes, yes. And to their defense, in January, it was a very, very, very preliminary thing. They basically showed that ground with a bunch of solar panels on it. There was no design or anything like that. At one time, there was mention of perhaps putting some charging stations there for electronic vehicles, but it was very, satellite view oriented. We did not get into any specifics other than to alert them that, would require a lot of approvals and a lot of hearings to get to that point. So it's not like it's coming in tomorrow. I'm assuming by them renewing their agreement with the consultant, we'll probably be hearing something because I think there's a drop dead date in that agreement, but we will let everyone know. Is that pretty much it, Amanda?
No, I think that's accurate. I would point out, just like you did, it was a very surface, hey, we're thinking about doing a solar farm kind of moment with the county reaching out to the township and us expressing, concerns from everything from E&S concerns to the zoning issues and telling them, sort of the things that, we would have to have ironed out and discussed with our professionals. And that was really as far as it went. And you're correct. I reached out to their executive director over the summer because I hadn't heard anything on it. And they were supposed to be providing us some updates. We were having some communication that I wasn't getting. So we have not had anything formal or any communication on it.
Well, we recently spoke with the county sustainability officer about a separate project. We also expressed concern from a stormwater management perspective as well with regard to any of that. And I believe she mentioned that at that point that whatever their thoughts or plans were with FERC for their review and approval, which is more of a federal review at that level. So it sounds like it's far out of our hands at this point.
Okay.
And
Well, I guess the big thing is when we know, you'll know. Okay, that's where I'll leave it at that. Moving right along to citizen comment. Anyone, do we need to move the podium back out to the middle, or? We ask you to please identify yourself with your address. Hey, Ken, how are you?
How are you? Ken Hemphill, 39 Millrace Place. I don't know if you saw in the paper, but Westchester Borough just finally implemented their plastic ban on plastic bags and straws and cups, like that. Given the number of restaurants and takeout places and supermarkets that we have, if Concord were to pass a similar ban, it would have an enormous impact and set an example. We could be a bellwether. Other townships would follow suit, and it would have a real impact. Just across the border, Delaware, the entire state, has banned plastic bags. I think every time you go to a creek and see a plastic bag in the creek, or a straw, or a cup, I mean, who would not want to see plastic bags banned? And given the commercial activity, Concord, we could really make a difference. So,
Thank you.
and thanks for continued great work on open space.
Great. Yes, sir. Anybody else? Yeah, Karis, we'll get you next.
Hi, my name's Josh Phillips. I live at 2 Marshall Court. This comes with somewhat not collective, I'll speak for myself, but it's a concern for the HOA. I'm a board member of our HOA in Meadow Run community. It's the Temple Road and Marshall Court where they go. You probably heard the complaint from other members of the community. The stop sign is not, nobody sees it apparently. The problem with Meadow Run community is it's an HOA that's split off into two sections with Temple Road going right down the middle of it. A lot of people take Temple Road to avoid 322, which is fine, but it's just a very dangerous intersection for just a community where it's mostly a lot of people kind of walking around, 48 houses total. I don't really know what the solution is outside of just having a cop sit on that corner all day, which I know is impractical. There is a stop sign there, obviously. It says, 25 miles an hour, but it's bad. I haven't seen an accident, but I've seen some close calls with individuals there. So I don't know what the solution is, but we would like it to be.
Is Marshall Court the four-way stop?
Yeah, it's a four-way. So it's
Yeah. that was the
Marshall
first
Court
one.
goes one way and then Sawmills the other way.
Yeah.
So it's not all the way through.
How long have you lived there now?
I've been there just over 2 years.
Okay.
And so I'm on the board now, and I've heard
No, why
members
I
of the
ask
people
is-
people have complained before.
Yeah, why I ask is this has been going on
Yeah.
since this was built.
I've
and
heard
it's
this. Yes.
the only subdivision in Concord that has a major road that bisects it. So
Yes.
you're in and I don't know if they had told you at one time, I think we had speed humps there.
Yeah, my neighbor said that there were speed humps, and then they took them out because people were just being
Well, the other
rude
thing,
and then just honking the
they
whole
would honk
time
the
because they
horn
wanted
at 4
that.
a.m. in the morning.
Yeah,
when
that
the
was
guy
their
went to work.
protest, which is ridiculous for a community.
Do you think we could ask the state troopers maybe to, sometimes we've asked them to look at
Yeah,
certain.
hang out there for enforcement.
Yeah, maybe try a little more on
Yeah.
the enforcement. Nate, is there
I know
anything-
it's not a long-term solution to have a cop there the whole time, but
Yeah,
it's the number one complaint. Like I said, I'm on the board, so it's the number one complaint coming. Is like, what can we do about this intersection from all of our neighbors?
I know you've been there 2 years. It was a complaint from when it was first built, and that's just been that way.
Yeah, and it is. It's been a challenge for a long time. I couldn't put the year on it, but maybe 7, 8 years ago, probably longer. I think we put street lights in there. We, upgraded all the signage, kind of improved the curbs, tried to tighten that intersection up. Look, it's an issue it exists in my community, exists in every community. I'm on my HOA board. Speeding in the neighborhood is the number one complaint. So not exactly like yours, but the same thing. So there's a limitation to what we can do to solve those types of issues. I am all ears. If you and your neighbors think there's a good solution, something you would like to see, I'm all ears. There's not a magic solution that we can implement. If council wants us to, we can certainly take a second look at it. I can put, the red blinkers up. We could put variable speed size up. There's some temporary things we can do. But at the end of the day, there's only so many things we can do and only so many tools at our disposal. But again, I'm happy if there's something you've seen, we can certainly look into it. I think council would certainly agree if there's something out there that makes sense, that's cost effective, we'd certainly look at it.
Didn't we, further up on that road, didn't we choke that down as a traffic calming?
The northern intersection, we kind of bumped out all the curbs to tighten that intersection up. We actually made that a three-way stop. It wasn't a stop. It was only a one-way stop at the time. But we made that a three-way because, again, people were flying through.
Would there be any feasibility to choking that down there with some traffic calming, maybe narrow it up a little, so something we could look at?
We can certainly look at it. Again, that's only going to do so much, in the
the only thing that I thought of that I was like, I don't even know if this is practical or if it would just make the whole place ugly. But those sort of those roundabouts, some communities are doing the roundabouts where there's no real stop sign anymore, but it forces everybody to slow down at least, so nobody's going. Really, people are going like 50 miles an hour.
I have to say, I'm glad you came because a lot of people don't like roundabouts, but they do work.
It's just like
they work.
just like speed humps, right?
Yeah. If they're not maintained, I know they become an eyesore, but they do.
It's the same as speed humps, right? For 50% of the neighbors that want it, 50% of the neighbors don't.
they don't,
So
'cause
it's
it's
just
a-
like a lose-lose proposition too often.
Well, is everybody in agreement? Maybe we can ask the troopers to
Meet out there?
check it out a little more, and if we come up with any other creative suggestions.
And I don't
we'll
want to
try
take up much time,
Sure.
but is there any sort of, on a separate issue, a regularly scheduled trash cleanup with regard to litter? Because the other issue that I've heard a lot about is along Spring Valley Road, kind of into Fellowship Drive. There's no houses around there, and so I don't know if that's just a place because people might go pick trash out of their yard, so maybe it just collects in that area more. So I don't know if there's any sort of regular schedule for trash cleanup that goes on with regard to litter, or?
I think we could ask our Public Works guys. They usually been very diligent. If they're driving down the road and they see somebody throw a bag of trash out, they'll pick it up. But we could ask them to maybe do a little more on that when they're going back and forth to the Wawa.
Okay, would that be just a regular, if it gets too much, I don't want to take up everybody's time, but if there's a significant amount, is it just email Public Works?
Email Amanda and she'll dispatch it from
If
there.
it's a significant amount, make sure you're letting us know. But we don't have a program
Okay.
for like litter pickup. I have literally like 6 guys in Public Works, 7 guys, and we maintain a lot of roadway. But I do like knowing about it because when we can help, we absolutely will.
Okay.
And, we try to do in the township, we're trying to work on some volunteer days for different things. Perhaps that's something, we could talk about with your neighborhood since you have an HOA, a volunteer cleanup quarterly or something, and that might help.
Okay, thank you very much.
I do have a quick question for you.
Harris, you're next. I'm sorry, Vanina, go
I
ahead.
did have a quick question for you. Now, you said people are flying by. Are there any specific times when this happens, or it's all day long?
At night, it's worse because they don't see any traffic or any people. Yeah, so as soon as the sun goes down, I'll go out there to like walk my dog or let it go to the bathroom or something, and it's like nobody stops. And when I don't mean like slow roll, they just don't stop.
For either
Yeah.
intersection or one?
It's
you
just
find?
Temple Road. If you're on Temple Road, like the people coming out of Marshall Court, it's a cul-de-sac, so you don't have a runway to get started going yet. But yeah, Temple Road at night, nobody stops, and during the day, it's just mostly rolling stops. Like I live on the corner right there. I've never seen anybody like come to a full stop. So
Okay.
I'd be happy to talk with city engineer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harris, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Karis Coker, 836 Concord Road. I really like the bullet point style of your presentation. I don't like the snake that crawls up the middle of it, but I did like
It's a roadway.
But that was the first thing that came to my mind. And I'm also interested at some point in knowing more about the cyber issue with the county, which I was unaware of, but that's a separate matter. But I would say, as far as the county's dealing with you with regards to the panels and so forth, I've been more regularly attending county council meetings, as I had done years before, and I find they're dealing with a lot of things, even legalizing things ex post facto, the practices that they initiated after they took control of the council. So I'm not sure how that'll work for you. As to banning plastic bags, please stay out of that kind of stuff. Just let each store owner deal with it. I also appreciate the township's support of the fire company, and we do have a great fire department, Concord Township. A couple of other items I just wanted to speak to briefly, bullet points. I don't know if you're aware of the rumblings of upcoming food supply chain concerns, and I was just thinking in terms of the general oversight of communities in our day, that the township might even take the initiative and encourage folks to plant a garden, even in a front lawn, or to incorporate vegetables into their flower gardens or whatever they have. But there are some very real concerns about these matters, and I would be glad to talk with any of you that wanted to speak to me about that. But I do hope that the township would at least not hold a firm line to folks who may decide to try to do something to provide food for their own family that might not meet code, so to speak. And I would ask you to consider a resolution, a public resolution in opposition to the county's plans to contract with an organization called Zen City. Zen City, are you acquainted with it, any of you at all?
Not I.
All right. They appropriated funding in their last budget for this year for this, and I did a bit of research. Zen City is a company that their principal, the CEO, and the principals of the company are former members of the 8200 Intelligence Unit of the Israeli Defense Force, which you can look it up. There's a whole website about them. And there are many concerns expressed globally about what this and other companies that have members from that intelligence unit in it are doing with the information that they're gathering, and who all is getting it besides the governments.
We'll look into that.
Okay. The county is hiring them to provide a dashboard of subject matter that's of concern to their constituents who don't show up to county council meeting by surveying the data that's available through the cyber world.
Okay.
I don't like the idea at all.
All right, we'll look into that.
Okay, the last thing.
Yes.
There was, speaking of scholarship programs and so on and so forth, and I just wanted to make the residents of this township aware and beyond of the aviation scholarship program that is available through the Aero Club of Pennsylvania. Applications are now open through early March, and there are interviews and the awards, the recipients are announced, and then the awards given in June at a dinner. But it's a great program, open to even as young as 14 years old, and we've had folks up in their 60s who, all aspects of aviation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Can I get to you next, okay? No, go ahead. No, you're up.
Hello.
Oh, you're good.
Lindsay and Chris Shea. We're 181 Governor Markham Drive. Just quickly on the fire department, they also do the Santa Claus roundabout in the neighborhoods, which is huge. And when COVID happened, they did drive-bys of families' houses for birthdays, which completely made my kids' birthdays. So just want to underscore the service they give to the community. We are here, Chris and I collectively, to ask for updates on the Governor Markham Drive issue, which I was here last month asking about.
Nate, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, two things really. One is, I think as we talked about last meeting, if and when the new construction project comes to fruition, we discussed applying a condition to that project that any construction vehicles will be parked on site. So that's kind of a to be determined in 1 second
Project.
for that specific project. Right now, what we're looking at, or at least what we're considering, is as part of the road program or via Public Works, trying to do some widening on the turn on Governor Markham, where we had some issues where it's really the tightest spot of that road. So we're looking at that. And then we spoke to Dan Moyer, the Public Works Director, spoke to the school district and said they have no plans to move those buses out to Channing Road. So everything's going to be status quo with the buses. So that's kind of maybe the three main points right now. I don't know that we're looking any further into parking restrictions just yet. That's not, something that we've progressed any further at this point in time. I think we'd like to look at those maybe 2 or 3 action items first. And then if, something else were to come of it, we could have, further discussions.
What would we need to do as residents of Governor Markham to formally request parking restrictions?
We don't have a process. I'll be the first to say there's no process, there's no procedure. I think, support of the neighborhood would be substantial in dictating that. We'd have to come up with a process. I mean, whether it's an ordinance, a code, something like that, just does not exist for us right now in the township. But if that's something that the problem is, it's similar to our speed hump scenario. 50% of the people are going to want it, 50% of the people are not going to want it. So while we respect your concerns, it's always that kind of scenario that we get stuck with a lot of times, is that push and pull.
It's a safety concern, and it's about kids and residents on the block.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure that it's clear that it's a broader based concern.
Okay.
Are you open to seeing example ordinances from other townships that will implement safety restrictions?
I don't think that's necessary. I think, again, if there's enough of a need for that, I think we can certainly address it. I've been here 17 years. It's the first time it's come up for Governor Markham. So, again, if there's a crushing, is clear need from everybody, I think we'd certainly take a second look at it.
So I can I can point you to empirical evidence for the need, which is 70 plus pictures or videos of how you could possibly navigate that turn or that hill with any version of parking right there. It makes no sense.
I think, though, that it's been our experience that not everybody will agree with what you're proposing, not that your concerns are not valid. one other question would come to my mind, that it would be a local ordinance, if I'm not mistaken, and who would enforce that? We don't have a police force that will issue tickets.
I mean, you don't enforce it now.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know.
but if we put no parking signs up and somebody says, well, so-and-so is parking there,
At least it gives the construction people or
well,
the
the
lawn.
construction people, I think Nate already addressed, that's going to be handled as part of the permit
So you've
process.
addressed it as a comment where you're going to add something to a job that might come up
Right.
at some point.
Right.
That doesn't give us as residents a resolution to the fact that there is that huge blind spot right there on Governor Markham, in addition to other parts.
Well, that's the first you mentioned, there's a blind spot. Where's the blind spot? Is that the turn?
Going up a hill and a curve.
Okay, well, if there's a blind spot and there's something that needs to happen regarding clearing and site distance, that's something we could take a closer look at. That, you didn't mention that last time, so that's new
Yeah,
for me.
so this is hard for us to get to. This is our kid's bedtime. So how, because now my kid's playing endless amounts of football on his screen, really enjoying. How do we ascertain next steps? How do we understand follow-up? How do we move forward?
I wanted to ask myself, is there a parking issue now? Do you have a lot of, like, the residents on that street parking in those areas that you're talking about?
It's
'Cause
not
I've not
residents.
seen them.
I mean, it's been like a video game basically the whole time because you're dodging like lawn vehicles or, the biggest issue has been that last construction.
But it's, okay.
It's
but-
not residents parking.
Well, which would be sort of some of the restriction, because I'm wondering if a lawn vehicle or someone's there, it's because someone's having temporary service to their home, right?
Of course,
Like Amazon driver are these the kind of things you're talking about?
Amazon
so,
drivers,
that's why I'm,
driveways, they're not parking on the road.
they're going in the driveways, okay. Because I'm just trying, I've driven down there, but I've not seen like cars parked, so I'm like, that's why
Not
I was wondering,
cars.
is that
cars.
a problem you're addressing?
Yeah, it's not.
Okay, so your biggest concern is construction parking.
It's the big stuff that you have to dodge around, yeah.
Okay, and then when people have service and things happening, like a lawn
Yeah.
mower, something like that. Okay.
That one the neighbors are less likely to agree to, but understandably. So how do we get information about next steps? I'm supposed to contact you, Amanda? How do
I mean, you can definitely contact me if you're thinking about getting together with your neighbors and actually trying to get us, getting council to consider a parking restriction on your street outside of an ordinance moment. I mean, I would say you'd probably want to circulate a petition with your neighbors. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn. I'm looking over at the solicitor or counselor, but I'm thinking that you would probably want to do that in an example of something we do where we have a petition process, which has to do with speed humps. We require 90% of the neighborhood. So I would think in that fashion, it would be about same. So for access, those that the sole access is there, you would probably want 90% of your neighborhood to be a part of that. So, I mean, you might want to start having conversations, with folks over there, because from their vantage point, outside of the stuff sort of that Nate is doing, and with us talking to the school district, who noted that nothing, they weren't changing any bus routes and there wasn't a consistent issue, that would be our move forward now.
Okay.
So I think you need to take it to the next level possibly, and anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be what I would suggest to you if you emailed me.
Okay.
But you can email me anytime for anything, and I'll let you know.
Roger that.
Sounds like a plan.
But your concern is not residents parking, it's just construction vehicles or also service vehicles?
I mean, the lawn vehicles are not great. We've been dealing with that for the whole time we've lived there. So I don't think that that's the thing that rose to the level of concern. The issue was these big, giant construction vehicles that made it fundamentally unsafe and was consistently not monitored or enforced.
So it sounds like there's not currently an ongoing issue. It's just with relating to any particular construction, which, as Nate mentioned, we would address with any construction projects that occur. So in terms of a next step, that next step would be part of permitting for that construction.
So you would put into the permit for that building location that they must park on site.
James, we could add that as a notation to the building permit, correct?
Love it.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
my plan, yeah.
That's what we were going to do.
That's
Guys
the
didn't
action.
tell me what the action step. I didn't know what the.
Oh, sorry,
I'm
that,
sorry,
that
that's
was
what I
what
thought I
Nate,
started
that was
with.
what Nate started with, so
Yeah.
we're,
You said that you would try and put it in at the, like.
No,
you
no,
want
he
to make
didn't
sure
say
that it
no.
happens.
that's why I'm glad we dotted that
Yeah.
I and crossed that T.
That's what we said
So
last
we're-
month, that's what I said
we're-
this
we're-
I'm
tonight.
gonna email you, Nate. I'm gonna.
You're welcome to. I think I might have said try and that I'm going to do it, and then it's still going to be implementing it and monitoring it.
Email me first, though, because he charges us. Sorry, Nate.
Gene. You're welcome. Gene Goble?
7 Quaker Lane, yes, sir. Question Resolution 18, the comprehensive plan addendum.
Yes.
I see in the public pack is the boilerplate, but then that says see Exhibit A, which is not available. So did it change from
No.
November 28th? That was presented in January. It has not changed.
No, nothing has changed on that.
As I provided a letter at last month's meeting, there's problems with that addendum. Specifically 30 Spring Valley. On one map, it shows it as municipal. On another map, I'm not quite sure. I think it still shows it as residential.
They were the two lots on the south side of Spring Valley, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it has a large amount of frontage on 322.
They're supposed to remain as they are. There's no change to those two.
Okay, which is what I'd like to see, but it sort of begs the question that you're making it spot zoning by everything that surrounds it is not residential. So how do you think it's going to stick? Would be my
across the
question.
street is still residential, so it's not
Across
surrounded.
the street is, across Spring Valley.
Yes.
Correct.
But the point is 30 Spring Valley confronts 322, whereas across the street doesn't, except for the little piece of Mikowski who is getting rezoned.
Right now, we're going to leave it the way we've had it. It's drawn.
Right.
You're right. And it
But-
might need to be amended in the future, but right now, we're going to leave it the way it's drawn. The way we just mentioned, that the
Yeah.
piece on the corner, they're both going to remain unchanged from what their zoning is now.
Okay, so the November 28th, this pretty picture shows it as municipal, and another pretty picture shows it as something else. Yeah, your map, ordinance 401, which really isn't a map, it has the addresses, which doesn't show 30, so it's staying the same. All right, whatever, I spoke my piece. And my last comment is Concordville Town Center. I see it going downhill in recent years. I'm going to give 3 quick examples. Target has 40 or 50 shipping containers in their parking lot. This has happened several times over the years.
They are remodeling the store.
Okay. Home Depot, the side closest to Target, has a parking lot full of material stored outside.
They do that seasonably every year for the mulch bags and everything else.
Mulch bags have been there since January and everything else.
Well, they might have got them early, but that yard was empty for quite a bit of
That
time.
lot is,
I'm there once a day. That lot was empty for quite a bit of time, and then the inventory started rolling in. And you'll see it'll empty out again at the end of summer into fall.
yeah, that lot is never empty. Home Goods, the side facing the IHOP, 24/7 for several years, the trash in their 18-wheeler access, those big gates,
Yeah,
open 24/7 for several years.
okay. Can you
Thank you.
check that, James? I guess it's the truck dock for, but it's also where they get their deliveries, that those gates are open 24/7. Can you make sure that they're closed? Thank you. Anyone else? Yes?
This is beautiful. It's being a farmer teacher. This is beautiful. Kathy Cured. I live at 212 Bethel Road. I heard a rumor, and I don't know if it's true, that the school district is going to change its bus depot.
The school district building committee is examining adaptive reuses for the Pennington School. And as part of that, they would move the transportation department from, I think, the middle school parking lot, where they have 2 trailers, over to that complex. And they would also move the majority of the bus parking over there too. They will need to come to us for approval. We have not seen a formal plan, but that is in discussion.
My concern is Bethel Road is a disaster. I mean, it has potholes. It's always been that way. I'm a 40-plus year resident of the township, and it's always full of potholes. And it's like in front of your 180 Bethel Road, the road is beginning to crack.
Okay.
So I,
Is Bethel a
might have
state
to do a
road?
traffic study, I think, but Bethel Road is,
Okay, Nate, can we look into that, please? That's a PennDOT road, right?
It is a state road. It's been problematic. It's been problematic.
it's been, for
Yes,
40
we had,
years, it has been.
Representative Williams, I think, had PennDOT come out and do some paving, I think, as early as maybe last year.
Spot paving.
Yeah, I think he did some patching, but I'm sure,
Yeah,
again,
they're
only
supposed
did
to
so
be
much.
patching it this week too. I saw it in the paper. But the thing is, my concern is that road may fall apart more than it is already.
We'll see if we can maybe add that to the overall road program, maybe to have them do the entire section of road properly, so.
Thank you very much. You have a
Okay. Moving right along to business items. First is the consent agenda, and the consent agenda this month consists of approval of the council public meeting minutes of February 7th, 2023. We have expenditures for the month. Dana, could you fill us in on them, please?
Sure, the total expenditures is $659,031.21. This consists of February payroll, which is $178,113.80. Current bills totaling $267,265.45, and sewer bills totaling $213,651.96.
We have no certificate of payments. We have the following financial releases: to Chetty Builders, Inc. for the maintenance bond for the sewers at Martin Run Development for $20,083.64. To Chetty Builders, Inc. for the maintenance bond for the Township Martin Run Development, $39,875.51. And to accept as complete for filing a conditional use application for a car wash at 1120 Baltimore Pike. That is the site of the hotel at the corner of 202 and Route 1. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As is customary, we ask Nate for an update on the schoolhouse and Baltimore Pike improvements. Would you kindly do so?
Yes, I think the interim operation is operating well. We've received literally one complaint, and that was from the contractor that serves that road. Otherwise, we haven't had any real negative feedback on that. We did receive comments from PennDOT about a week and a half ago. We are working on addressing those. We will be resubmitting to PennDOT no later than the end of March, and hopefully we will be in a position to get that permit as early as April.
Okay.
Once we get the permit, the next step then is council authorizes us to put that out to bid. Again, best case scenario could be maybe mid-late summer construction, but it's still on target for this year.
Okay, sounds good. Item number 3, establishment of a bond for the assistant township manager in the amount of $500,000. Amanda, could you briefly tell us what that's about?
Yes, so as you know, we started doing online payments for things. This is a belt and suspenders moment to make sure that the folks who have access to money and are processing that money, that we have safeguards in place here at the township to make sure that if anything were to happen, township has the insurance necessary, which is the portion of the bond. As you know, every year we do the treasurer and we do the tax collector. So the assistant township manager backs up our finance director / treasurer and also takes payments for the sewer bills. So this is just a safeguard, an extra safeguard.
Moving forward, would this be done then at the reorg meeting each year?
Yep, that is correct.
Sounds good. Okay, do we have a motion to approve that, the establishment of that bond?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is the authorization for the township manager to execute a Chester Water Authority agreement for water extension to the sewer plant for fire safety measures. We do not have public water for the sprinkler systems at the sewer plant, and this would be the contract with Chester Water to get that done. Do we have a motion to do so?
I so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next would be to authorize the solicitor to enter an agreement with of sale for an easement from Garnet Valley School District at the high school property to provide for the sewer extension to service the Cambridge Down community. Do we have a motion to approve the authorization to the solicitor?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is ordinance number 401 of 2023, which amends the zoning map of Concord, rezoning certain lands. Was the subject of a hearing recently, and I would ask for a motion to approve that ordinance.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Amanda, I have a crazy question for you. As an ordinance, do we need to do a roll call vote?
Yes, we should.
So we should probably go back to this, and would you call the roll?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, just so we're procedurally correct.
Yep, yep. So those, I'm trying to look down the end, sorry. Councilmember Mutchler, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Deschmuk, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Rankin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Crossan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Pileggi, how do you vote?
Let me think about it. Yeah, aye.
Okay. So it passes.
Okay, now, you had told me that a while ago, and
You're breezing through. Look at you. That's a good catch.
It doesn't all go in one ear, out the other. But anyway, next is Resolution 18 of 2023 Comprehensive Plan Addendum. This is the partner to the one we just did for the rezoning. It was also the topic of the hearing that same night. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution 18 of 2023?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is Resolution 19 of 2023. I see the applicant is here in the audience tonight, and they have a question regarding one of the conditions. I think what I'd like to do is perhaps read this into the record, and then what we would do is open it for discussion and go from there. I'm just trying to find all my papers here. Oh, it's double-sided, that's why. Anyway, it's a resolution of the Council of Concord Township approving the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness to issue a demolition permit for 772 and 780 Baltimore Pike in connection with a building permit application for the same property. And it would be approved subject to the following conditions. Applicants shall take and provide the Historical Commission with additional photographs of the facade and interior rooms of both historic structures, referred to as Historic Resources 163 and 164 on the Historic Commission's letter Exhibit C attached here too, and said photographs are to be taken after the buildings are cleared out. Number 2, applicant will provide to the Historic Commission architectural components of the structures to be demolished, so long as the Historical Commission has identified said components prior to demolition and so long as reasonably feasible. Number 3, the demolition shall be by mechanical means without the use of any explosive devices. Number 4, applicant will provide the Concord Township Historical Commission with the floor plans of Resource 163, as the third floor of this building has not been significantly modified since original construction. Number 5, applicant shall display local art at the proposed development, which shall include historic imagery or murals of the local area. Number 6, the historic photograph portrait of the Concordville Inn currently in the entrance area of the restaurant shall be reused in the proposed development. And number 7, which I think is the one that's going to be the topic of discussion, the exterior of the proposed development shall incorporate the architectural style of the Concordville Inn and preserve the historic character of the streetscape. And Concord Township Council shall have final approval of the architectural elevations of the proposed development. It is understood that Concord Township's approval will not be unreasonably withheld. I think procedurally we should probably have a motion and a second to get things started, and then I'll ask the applicant to make their comments. Do we have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Prior to a vote, Ms. Shelsky, you represent the client?
I do. Good evening, everyone. My name's Deborah Shulsky. I'm with the firm of Riley, Wright, Burhan, and Kyler Greco here on behalf of Encompass, but we have been working very closely with the landowner, Steve Angeline, who's also here, who was the one who, as you know, actually submitted the demolition permit. I also have with me Serena Davis from Encompass and our historic consultant, Melissa Steele, with me, in case you have any more technical questions. As Mr. Pileggi indicated, the conditions that he read off 1 through 6 were ones that we all vetted out with your historic commission, and they provided a number of helpful comments and questions that we answered. We spent a considerable amount of time with them working through some of their issues, providing them with additional information, and addressing their comments in the historic study, which I believe led to all these conditions that we are agreeable to. The one that we wanted to discuss with you a little more was number 7, as Mr. Pileggi indicated, with reference to incorporating the architectural style of the Concordville Inn. We would respectfully request that that be changed to say the architectural style of the surrounding area, taken in consideration of the Concordville Overlay District standards, and then maintain the rest of that sentence. My client just has some concerns with making that commitment given the proposed use, which is not obviously a residential use. We're still in the process of designing the full building elevations, although we do have some concepts in mind, but we know, for example, that we have to provide a flat building. So we know that's, one of the examples of something we can't do that would be consistent with the Concordville Inn. We also know that we can't incorporate, just given the functionality of the use and the building code and what they're intending to do to operate their use, we can't provide arched windows. So we don't want to commit to something that we knew we ultimately would not be able to comply with. So we were suggesting if we could have some flexibility with that language. We certainly have every intention of making it compatible with the other surrounding uses and medical facilities in the area. The streetscape we're going to be enhancing, and we believe ultimately it will be we will provide amenities and beautify the area that will be consistent with what your intent of the ordinance is.
I guess one of the questions I have is that it is in the overlay district, which has its own design standards, if I'm not mistaken, from the ordinance. And I think the way I read this is that would be the governing ordinance regarding the design standards. But I think what the Historical Commission is that it be sensitive. I remember in the one meeting it would be, I used the Tom Comina word, referential to the Concordville in design. I don't know how to get around that in here. I think there's basically, they could be construed as two different things. I mean, we have an ordinance that says what you can build and what it can look like and what can happen, but then there's also the Concordville Inn, which I think the part they're talking about is that second floor, or second or third floor, correct? That's the only thing that exists of the old Concordville Inn.
Which, to that point, your comment seemed, I was confused what was difficult to incorporate, because this building has a mansard style roof, so if anything, it's a flat building that just sort of incorporates a mansard roof and some decorative details over windows, some decorative finishing between the second and third floor. So this, of all potential styles to incorporate into a building, I think sort of the mansard Second Empire style may be the easiest. And the language in this says shall incorporate the architectural style, so it's not even specifically dictating what elements. So the language itself is broad and provides flexibility, which I understand you're looking for flexibility, but again, this is a relatively broad, easily incorporated style, and the language, it just references incorporating a style, not even particular elements.
Okay, I mean, we just didn't want to be misleading in having you think that we were able to necessarily have that
Well, I know
appearance.
that when we initially had the discussions around this, you you showed us some proposed designs either from previous facilities or what have you, and part of that discussion was the fact that this was impacting Class 1 historic structures in the heart of the historic district. We had architectural review that was required as part of this, and final review of the elevations and plans. And so I think we made it pretty clear from the very first conversation that sort of your stock standard, modern looking building that you proposed to us would not be acceptable. And so this condition is consistent with the discussions we've had from the beginning, and whether or not it was in this demolition permit, it would be as part of any saldo a condition of the land development as well. So this is, this would be here and it would be in the land development, which is very consistent with with how we operate in Concord Township. It is not unique to this project.
Yeah, but I guess where I'm trying to maybe see if we can clear this up, but if it were to read, the exterior of proposed building shall be sensitive to the architectural style of the Concordville Inn and consistent with the design standards of the Concord Village Overlay District, would that be of any help?
I like that language, shall be sensitive to the architectural style.
But it still has to comply with the overlay district.
Oh, absolutely.
We John's question that, and I think the first night you came in, it was a beautiful building.
Right.
It just wasn't going to fit here.
And we have made changes to that. We understood your concerns.
This also, to me, is similar to a land development approval in that we're saying you can take it down providing all these conditions are met. And there's something that dictates that. So I think in the lineage of the development moving forward, not telling your applicant what to do, but the next thing, in my opinion, would be to get the architectural elevations approved even before you start a land development plan.
We actually would like to do that as soon as possible because my client has to close on the property in April. So assuming the board takes favorable action on this, we certainly wanted to start that process right away so that we can have a comfort level moving forward and not that you feel comfortable with the elevation before we get too far into it.
I was probably the one at the one meeting that mentioned about the historic character of the Concordville Inn. And I felt strongly about that and still do, but I think that the way this is worded, I think that the design standards that we can point to with specifics are the design standards that Tom Committed developed and are part of the Concord Village Overlay District. So I think that we should try to be sensitive, be referential to this style, but we need more importantly to adhere to the design standards as recited in the ordinance.
The design standards in the ordinance, I think, are not. They are good general guidance because we're not trying to have, for example, every building look identical. So they're not prescriptive. There's aspects and elements and suggestions, references for a variety of things that could be incorporated. I think that what this is trying to do by saying incorporate the style is saying that this style has existed at this location for hundreds of years, and so therefore if it's going to be replaced, it should be replaced with sort of a looking building. I'm concerned about the language, about adjusting language from incorporating the style to being sensitive to the style. It seems to be, in my opinion, really watering it down.
Perhaps though, and I think this is why I think architects get the big bucks, and I applaud the architects for their design abilities, but suppose there's a design out there that isn't 100% sensitive to this design, but it's something we really like, and it touches a lot of other bases that this might not. I think we're also tying our hands as the board or council that's going to review this drawing to say what we like, by saying, well, it doesn't have a mansard roof and it doesn't have an arched window, so you can't build it. whereas there could be something out there that touches all those bases. If I'm not mistaken, when we did the Sun East Credit Union, that did not look the way it does now when it first came in. But the architect got very creative with the lines of the roof and things of that nature. And I think we have a building that we can all be proud of. So I almost want to let the architects do the architect thing, but knowing it's got to be sensitive to this kind of look.
And
not emulate this look, so that we just have an expanded Concordville Inn that is going to be another story tall perhaps, and 30,000 square feet of mansard roofs. Maybe part of the porte cochere that's going to be the entrance to this building could incorporate some of that design. But perhaps the rest of the building might look something, there might be something the architect comes out with that we like and does a better job for us. This is a very important streetscape to Concord Township. And I was here when we authored the Village Overlay Ordinance, and we really haven't had that many people test it. And I would like to see an architect be an architect. We know what we want when we see it, and try to give them a little more flexibility. So that's why I think being sensitive would be a little more wiggle room on both our parts.
And you, of course, will have the benefit of Mr. Committa, who I've worked with
Yeah.
a number of different projects, and he's excellent and has very creative thinking in terms of, the appearance and features that may get us all to think outside the box a little bit.
One of my concerns, though, was that we've had these discussions for a long time, and what's the design hasn't changed, and I understand that there's obviously cost involved with redesigning something, and you don't want to get ahead of things, but within this historical impact study, resource study, there's references to the streetscape and the setbacks and things like that, and it seems to be tone deaf to the discussions that we've had to date, as well as the requirements within the historic overlay district for the way the streetscape needs to look. And so I just want to be sure that the applicant understands that if it's the way you've proposed, or that's it, like this project, your project only works as proposed, and there's really no flexibility, we might be running into a big issue down the road, because as it's proposed, I'm not sure really does meet, what we will need.
And I don't think you've seen, because we're still working on it, it's a work in process, but it has changed from what you initially saw. I know you wanted brick, it's going to be brick. I know there's a concern with the columns, they're going to be brick columns. It's going to have, more of a feel than what you originally saw. And in terms of the streetscape, I mean, we have to comply with that, and we're intending to comply with the overlay district standards.
Well, as I said, I think that by substituting the word be sensitive to incorporate and adding the catch-all that it has to be consistent with the design standards as recited in the Concord Village Overlay District gives us both a little bit of flexibility to get very creative on this project. Yes, the Concordville Inn's been there for a lot of years. And yes, it's sad to see it go to some degree, but progress sooner or later has to take over. And I think we have a hell of an opportunity here to redevelop this side of the street, which could lead to future redevelopment. And I think we can end up with something we're all proud of if we work together, but we don't put ourselves in a slot where we can't get out of it. And that's what's concerning me. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in. So where are we at? We have okay.
If you want to amend, you have to move an amendment.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's figure out where it goes. I'd like to make a motion that we amend item number 7 to read: the exterior to proposed development Should be development or building? Development, yeah, because that includes the site work and everything. The exterior proposed development shall be sensitive to the architectural style of the Concordville Inn and consistent with the design standards as recited in the Concord Village Overlay District of the Concord Township Ordinance, and Concord Township Council shall have final approval of the architectural elevations of the proposed development. As understood, Concord Township's Council's approval will not be unreasonably held. So I'm making a motion that we amend it to, I hope somebody wrote all that down, to that. Is there a second to that motion? And preserve, I could leave that in, and preserve the historic or character of the streetscape. We can leave that in. So all we're doing is changing the word incorporate to be sensitive, and we're adding the language that it has to be consistent with the design standards as recited in the zoning ordinance.
And council's going to have final approval.
Everything else stays
of
the same, and it's
of the
understood.
plan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and as I said, this is one of these, we only did this a couple times, very similar to, Debbie, a land development plan, where you can't get a permit until all this stuff is done.
Correct.
And I think I think you guys were in agreement with 1 through 6, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm asking to amend the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
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 Nay.
John?
It passes.
Hmm?
It passes. No.
Okay. Okay, so now we vote on the whole thing,
As amended, correct.
okay? All in favor of 1 through 6 plus the amended number 7, signify by saying aye.
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 Nay.
Nay.
Okay, 3-2. All right, good luck with your
Okay,
project.
thank you very much.
All right. Next on the agenda is Resolution 20 of 2023, which is the conditional use application for Crafton Communications for the existing cell tower located at 725 Smithbridge Road. We had a conditional use hearing on this, and it's approved subject to the following conditions. Applicant must apply for and obtain all building permits. Number 2, if an antenna array is not being used, applicant must remove it within 90 days of the date it ceased being used and or discontinued. Number 3, any and all new pads are placed within the existing fenced area, and if additional fencing is required, it must match the existing fence. Number 4, any and all new antenna and arrays are to be placed a minimum of 105 feet in height. Number 5, the height of any and all cabinets is not to exceed the height of the fence. Number 6, the applicant or successors and assignees shall pay Concord Township $300 per month during the first year of installation, and said leasehold payment shall increase 3% per annum for each year thereafter. And lastly, the construction and placement of the new components are to conform with all FAA requirements, the structural analysis provided by the applicant with all applicable township codes and building requirements. Do we have a motion to approve that resolution?
I so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Crossan, do you want to handle the goat lease?
Sure.
Since you were the...
The goats are probably the
Wait a
most...
minute, the GOAT is doing the goat lease.
You know, it's, they're probably the most exciting thing happening in Concord Township. You know, they're our favorite new residents, and they've been with us for a year now, and so it's time to renew their lease. This is a 9-month lease, so that it goes from April 1st to December 31st. That way we'll be renewing. That's an attempt to renew all of our leases annually in January. It's not because we're looking to kick them out in the holidays. And this is for the 3 acres of the fenced barnyard as well as the barn over at Bush Hill Farm for the approximately 40 goats and 3 sheep, but not more than 55 animals over there with Mr. Jonathan Tropea, the owner of said animals. So I so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is Resolution 22 of 2023, County Hazardous Mitigation Plan Adoption. Amanda, briefly, what is that all about?
So this is a basic requirement, if you want me to be brief. So the
Okay.
county is required
Motion
to, the county's required to update their plan. We're a part of that plan. So we do that to make sure that we can get, if there is, heaven forbid, a disaster, we can get grant monies
Okay.
and all types of things. So it's a requirement.
So it's a requirement, but also a bit of housekeeping, so we're covered. Do you have a motion to approve Resolution 22 of 2023?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion. So
Second?
moved.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming out this evening. Mr. Tucker, I'm glad to hear that your back surgery went well.